I had the honor of mastering the digital release and cutting the vinyl record of Grace Ives' Janky Star album. So, from what I recall, I almost didn't get the chance to master this record because of a really tight deadline. But you just have to take those in stride, and you just keep doing your best even if things don't pan out. But ultimately, for this album, it did. Thankfully, I had the opportunity to work on one song and they loved my work. So, it sealed the deal for the whole album. I loved Grace Ives' music and along with her collaboration with the brilliant Justin Raisen. So it was such a treat to be on the mastering seat and be a part of taking the whole album to the finish line. As a mastering engineer, I tend to work at the very tail end of the production process, so not a lot of action right until the mixes are approved and ready for mastering. But I always have fond memories of working with producer Justin Raisen on every project he brings to our studio. Justin's production notes are always creative and he encourages me to think outside the box. So, for example, for the very first Grace Ives song I mastered for this record, his only request is to quote unquote, just make Bjork want to adopt her. So, that was so fun, and that's when you know that the album's going to be good. So this might be an unconventional answer, but I really loved that the record starts with the song Isn't It Lovely? Janky Star is such a wild, eclectic, unapologetic album, and to start with a relatively more chill track was a brilliant programming move, I think. Mastering engineers tend to pay a lot of attention to the album sequence, so this really stood out to me. On its own, the song is hypnotic, but as a starting track, I think it takes on a whole nother role of whetting the appetite of listeners for what's to come, like the start of a roller coaster ride. And I think Isn't It Lovely was the perfect song for it. And it was also a fun record to master. I really love the low end production on this one. It was such a privilege for me to be a part of this album, and it's really because of the small but mighty team that brought this record to life. The collaboration between Grace Ives and Justin Raisen was so inspired, and their genius just seeped through each of the songs. They were also backed by such a badass engineering crew made up of Anthony Lopez, Erin Tonkon, and my good friend Ainjel Emme. Usually, as a mastering engineer, you tend to have a bit of detachment from the meat of the production process, and that's really for a reason. You rely on that objective, neutral starting perspective to effectively master a record. But this album for me was different in a sense. And I think it's because I was such a fan of every person behind the music. And I could also hear the passion and conviction behind every track. So I absolutely had a blast. And I'm glad Grace Ives' Janky Star got the recognition it deserved.